Hey everybody, my name's Sarah.
My name is Mujib.
And welcome to episode 17 of Let's Get To It. Episode 17!
Yeah, that's major.
We're all riled up. Today we're going to talk about failure.
Right. That's not a light topic.
It's not a light topic, but it's so vast. Mm-hmm. And it's such a loaded term. Mm-hmm. And I think it can be a really scary term for some people, but it's such a universal thing. Yeah. Because we're all failures at something.
Right.
So it's not. We're here to take kind of the scariness out of the word. I hope.
Right. I mean, that's perfect. That's how you said it too. Because I feel like there's such a fear of failure that stops a lot of first steps from being taken, so right. It's like, if I think that I'm not going to make it, then I'm not even going to try yet, right? If I'm that type of person, right? To kind of speak for myself in that sense, there's a lot of like, is this the right time? Am I prepared enough? So on and so forth. All these questions that come in that could easily be categorized into that, like, well, why would I be asking myself those questions if I'm not weighing success versus failure at this thing that I'm about to get into,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my mind's kind of racing right now because I'm just thinking, like, if you think, you're not going to make the team, so you don't even try out, or, why ask that person out because they're going to say no. It's sort of like, we've talked about this so many times before that you're sort of writing the events out for yourself. Like if you don't even give yourself that shot, then that's a self-fulfilling prophecy. Well, of course you're not even giving yourself the chance to succeed, and just going for it. But it's even like, it's such a, oftentimes we just pit failure and success against each other, like that's the only option, right? And when it's not really, that's not the case. It's not that black and white, obviously, or maybe not so obviously.
Well, I think about so much of even the analogies around this stuff comes with sports and that type of thing, where it's like, if my sport of choice is boxing, then there's going to be a winner, there's going to be a loser, so it's going to be success or failure in that sense. That's not life. I'm not a boxer. You know what I mean?
Right.
My life isn't a boxing match. It's not about whether or not I'm getting a trophy at the end of this thing that I'm getting. And, newsflash, like most of the time, we're not going to get any trophies at all for any of the stuff that we do, like even the big successes. You said something recently that was awesome, which is just like celebrate the small successes. Don't just like celebrate women for these two specific moments, baby shower and a wedding shower, but, how do we celebrate our little successes in the same way that we can acknowledge those little failures, I guess, like I feel like it's a hard topic to even get into because this day and age especially, and maybe it's like this all the time, but I'm born now, so it seems like in my adult life there's so much around like this. I don't want to admit failure. I don't see anything as a failure. Everything's a lesson building forward. But if I can't acknowledge that, like, I set out to do this thing and I didn't do it, and I tried to do it and it didn't work, and I can't acknowledge that, like, I failed at that thing. See, I'm even dancing around talking about it because it is a difficult topic to jump into because it's touchy.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing where I feel like, it's treated as such a dirty word. And so there have been a lot of times where I'm teaching a spin class or I'm teaching a functional fitness class, and I'm like, word of the day is failure. So today we're going to focus our attention on failing, and I actually make failure the goal. So it's really interesting if you can actually make failure your goal because it takes some of the fear out of it. And so I'll put it in context like, you want to take this workout to muscular failure, for example. Like, and sometimes you want to do that. Sometimes you want to gas the muscles, like whatever it is you're working on, to complete failure to make gains, so to speak. Gains. But anyway, it's cool to kind of see the room when you're like, okay, today your goal is to fail in class today, and people are like, wait, what? Because we're trained, at least in this society, or my experience, in the United States of America growing up in the time frame that I grew up in, right? Just to put it in context, as a 1983 baby, that like failure's bad. Like, failure is not to be celebrated. It's, win. I mean, even today we see that culture, like this winning culture, America winning all the time. What the hell does that mean? The fuck?
Right.
Like, are you kidding me? So, I actually kind of like to bring it around in terms of, don't be scared of that word. Like, I want you to take a risk and fall flat on your face. Like, what, yeah.
Whoa.
So, I'm taking that, like, just being that bold about it.
Wow. I'm having such an internal clash with myself
Oh,
right
Mujib's
now.
like,
It's like,
no, I can't.
because I want to be able to say, like, I don't know. There's such a inherent need to succeed.
Right.
At so many different things that I'm having such a hard time, like, accepting this message around failure. Like, and it's wild because we just had a whole pre-conversation about this. And like, I really went into this episode thinking to myself, like, yeah, failure, gotta do it. But at the same time, I'm thinking about, like, okay, I'm gonna swim across this lake. I gotta succeed. Like, I can't fail at swimming across the lake. But at the same time, like, yes, I can turn around and go back. I can look at where I got to in that moment and say to myself, well, I didn't succeed at getting all the way across that lake. Let me ask myself why that was, and then go back to the shore and stay safe and live another day to be able to then go back and try to swim across the lake again, get a little bit farther, take the lessons that I got from not doing that. So even in my own, you guys are hearing my own internal dialogue coming out right now. But even in that reality of, like, of course I want to be able to use that analogy of not, if it is life or death, like succeeding or failing, getting across that lake or not, I guess it's taking that step back and saying, well, who made it life or death? Did I make it? Like, no, I'm never going to go back to the shore. Either I'm making it across the lake or I'm going to die. You know what I mean? If so, why? Why do I have to perish? And I think about that in terms of business too. Like, why just because I can't get to this next place that I think that I want to get, this mark that I set for myself, how come it's either get there or perish?
Right.
That sort of idea. It makes me think of, I probably have brought this up on the podcast a couple times, but the 50 Cent album, like, Get Rich or Die Trying. That basic idea is like, well, if you're not going to get rich, then you're going to die. Well, you're going to die regardless. Like, either, like, that's just inevitable. Right. So there's this idea of failure being inevitable. Like, it's inevitable in a quest for a continuous life of pushing oneself to achieve more, or to get to a next level, or to step outside of our boundaries or beyond our own personal abilities, that we kind of have to bump into that failure in order to define where am I right now. There is, like, I have to be scrupulous enough to realize that there is a limit. Like, there is a height that I can't jump, or a distance I can't run right now. And maybe I can do the work to allow myself to jump that high or to run that far. And that is the scary part. I think that's what sits folks up. That's what, in my life, I'm trying to run back through my mind and say, like, when are those times when that has caught me up and that I've sat myself back? And I think I have definitely tried to swim across the lake before and been like, no, go back. You know what I mean? And maybe I went back the next time and made it all the way across the lake. I don't know.
Yeah. I and this has been a more recent revelation for me, this sort of, like, daring to fail. And that's putting yourself out there, and that it isn't as existential as we think. And I think that's having this fear, like, I was talking to Mujib before we hit the record button, that, growing up for me, I was growing up in an academic paradigm where, if you weren't succeeding academically, like, you were a failure, and failure was unacceptable. Like, it was very black and white. Like, the lines had been drawn. So much so that the only way I even saw myself was, I am worthy of love when I'm churning out success in the form of, grades and awards and all kinds of things. And, that did some damage, and it did some good because I became a very disciplined person that, reached high. But for a while, it just really put me in this tailspin of like, when you get that rejection letter, or you get that bad grade, or you don't win the basketball game, and you're just like, you're so thrown off by it that you can't even deal with it. Like, that's not healthy. It's like, okay, like, how can you, because nobody is going, like, I don't, show me the person that has had success on success on success on success without failures, if you want to call them that. And even if there's somebody that you're thinking of, I can tell you somebody, well, you know what, go back and look at really dive into their history a little bit more, because you're gonna read into that story a little bit more, because there's more to it, and there's also, there's just more going on there. Or Mujib and I were also talking about the idea that there's this constant give and take. So if you are hyper successful at something, there is an aspect of your life that you are failing at. Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying that to be an asshole, but that's just like, we're human beings. So there's, we only have so much energy and attention to give. So either folks are going to be very egalitarian about that energy and attention. Other folks are going to say, you know what, I need 90% of my energy and attention to go to this thing that I'm trying, this business that I'm trying to launch. So I only got 10% left. So sorry, mom, dad, wife, kid, like 10% is not a lot for the rest of the world, friends, right. Everything else. So, just being mindful of that balance, like there's just like, it's okay. We literally, I'm just trying to say, like, we're all failures. And like, that's how, I feel like if I wore a t-shirt that said failure, like people would look at me and be like, well, wow.
Right. Because it is
that
so hard
sucks.
to even hear it. Like,
right? It is, and it's so hard. And I kind of just love diving in, right, and figuring out why it's so hard for us.
Because it's a level of honesty.
Yeah.
It's a level of honesty. Like, I have to be honest enough to look at myself and say, you're right. Like, if I am a success, I am a failure too. Like, it's regardless.
Yeah.
Like, because if I can't honestly say, that thing that I set out to do, I didn't get it. Like, like every single thing that I've ever tried to do in my life, every idea that I've ever had that I thought was going to hit, they haven't all hit, or else I'd be doing a bunch of different things, right?
Yeah.
Not to say that, like, the things that hit aren't good to me and I'm not happy about them, but, like, I had to get over these hurdles or these failures or to hit these walls or to have these things happen that set me up for this next position.
Yeah.
But again, this is a sticky topic.
I know. Mujib is squirming.
Yeah, I'm literally
He's squirming in his
my
chair, everyone. I got him. It's all good.
Wow,
no, yeah,
that's
it really
real.
is. I think
real.
I think we just put so much stock into, and I full disclosure, like, I want to be a successful person, and everybody's definition of success is different. So, like, we already know that. So, but yeah, so for me, like, I want to be the best at what I do. That's important for me. But yeah, that comes with, it just comes with multiple failings.
Right.
And we all have to reckon with that. So I was saying to Mujib just before we hit record once again that, if I'm grinding on my business, I am failing my partner because, he's not getting my full attention necessarily. And like, I have to reckon with that. And so does he. And so, whatever. And okay, so time management, if I'm, it's like, all right, then you set boundaries and you go, okay, I'm going to grind on my business this many hours, or this is going to take my focus. And then, we're going to have Sunday. Like, Sunday is going to be our day, or whatever terms you want to work out in your life, or whatever's important to you. But yeah, it's like, it's okay. Like, I know I'm, even in the last week, I've, picked up some other projects and done some stuff. I'm like, wow, I am failing at my dog mom skills, are like, in the toilet right now. You know, I look at my dog and I'm like, I am not seeing you at all. Like, whatever, you know, I have to reckon with that and make adjustments if I want to make adjustments and figure out what's important to me. But like, I guess I'm just not afraid to just say like, yeah, dude, I'm a failure.
Damn, this is turning into my therapy session. Holy shit.
I want everybody, okay, if you're listening to this in the car right now, roll the windows down and be like, I'm a failure. It's okay.
Okay.
Oh my God, do you guys remember that Good Will Hunting is one of my favorite movies? And there's this movie, where there's a scene where it's Robin Williams and it's, what's his face? Star of the movie. People are gonna, I know you're saying it at home. And he, of course, he plays Will in the movie, and he's like hugging it out. And it's like, it's okay, like it's okay, like that's where I feel like we're at that right now. Like it's okay to fail. It's okay to fail.
Damn, yeah. It's so interesting because it's not something that I interact with, other than to use it as the motivator or to talk myself into the strong headspace. So it's like, I don't even see losses, I just see lessons and all those little things. And like, I didn't get that from a meme. Like, that's just real. Like, I've lost a lot of shit that put me in a position where I am right now. You know, I've invested a lot of time, energy, money into things that didn't work. That whole idea of taking the spaghetti and throwing it at the wall that I was saying a little earlier when Sarah and I were talking. And so for those 5 things that are going to stick, there's 15 things that aren't going to stick.
That you got to keep throwing.
Yeah. Or just, I mean, you do have to keep throwing, and you have to go for those 5 things that did stick too. And I think that for me, I've spent so much of my 30s going for those things that stick. And I say this is a therapy session because you're literally making me like actually look back in my life and be like, well, where did this come from? Like, where is my hang up with wanting to admit, like you're like, I'm a failure, and I don't want to just be like, yeah, me too. You know? And I'm gonna have to ask
like,
myself,
like,
but why? Why is that? Why can I actually list off? If I had to list, and I'll welcome everybody to do this, like list 10 things that you failed at in the last 10 years. You know, like if I had to list 10 things that I failed at in the last 10 years, my list is longer than 10 things. You know, like there's a lot of shit that I've tried to do that I thought was gonna hit that didn't actually hit. And
it's vulnerable to like say that.
But it's so interesting for me because I failed my whole way through high school. Like I think like my adolescence, my early 20s were so much just about like not caring about the status quo. Like I was the exact opposite of everything that you just said about yourself coming through school. Like you cared about getting A's. I didn't care about getting grades. Like I don't even care if I don't lose credit in this class. Like I'm not here for it. Like there are probably lockers in old schools that I never cleaned out. I never covered a book once in my entire high school career, like put the book cover on the book with the paper bag, all that. I never did that. You know, I couldn't find my books by the end of the year, shit like that. And like, and I think, and I've had this conversation with my brother, where it's like, I think that there's a way to set the bar so low for oneself that it's like, I don't even care that I'm failing. You know, it's like, it's like I was listening to somebody say one time, and he was like talking about how he didn't care about not being able to leave the country. You know, he was like, I used to, maybe he was a felon or something like that, and he hadn't gotten his right back to leave the country. And he was like, he just convinced himself that it was just bullshit over there. I don't need to go to Italy. It's bullshit over there. Stay right here on my block. You know what I mean? That sort of idea. Until he started going over there later in his life, got enough success, gained himself enough the ability to go back and travel and get a passport and shit. And like, then he's like, well, I feel like I just limited my life because I didn't think that I could achieve going over there. So like, you know, for me, I think that in hindsight, I never believed that I could get straight A's, so that I convinced myself that I don't want to get straight A's, so that I'm failing because I don't care about getting straight A's. Because I wasn't willing to just try real hard and be a C student. You know what I mean?
And that's a protection. Like it's a
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
protecting you.
Right. And that has apparently followed me in my late 30s, you know what I mean?
But you know what though? Like you and I are sitting across from each other now. So yeah, I was the kid that was like A or death. You didn't give a shit. But we're right here now talking to each other. So we both did something right.
And I think we've both been willing to be like C people. Like I've been willing to be a C average entrepreneur in my quest to be an A. You know what I mean by that? Like I've been willing to fail at trying to do this thing in my quest to find success. Like, you know, when I think about just, especially if we look at like year 1 versus year 8 sort of thing, like you look at the inching by, you know, that like the level of success that was so pleasing then compared to what's going on now. Like, you know, those first couple of people that came through the door, like if I just had those first couple of people right now, I'd be like, damn, like I'm really not doing enough. You know what I mean? But then it was like, number one, because I was able, like I was willing to be the D average to the C average to the B average till I could be the A plus person. You know what I mean? And that, for me, I think in my adult life, that's why I am able to share this space with you. Because I embraced the necessity to learn and to make myself better and to craft myself into this person, where it's come with failures. You know, I've lost a lot of shit on the way to get here. You know what I mean?
Dude, yeah. And I love the opportunity to talk about the failure and you know, you mentioned like, I do think that failure, well, either a failure is a failure or you turn it into a lesson, you know, because you know, it becomes a lesson if you make it one. I really think, like, I believe in that there has to be sort of that proactive, like that ability to reflect on the failure, because here's the thing, like, because we're all failures and everybody's going to fail. So just like get used to it. So either the failure is going to completely incapacitate you, or it's a pivot. It's like, okay, like maybe you're like, all right, so I'm not supposed to be doing that. Okay, what, you know, it opens another doorway or something. Like there's so many ways to like, or you're like, okay, I'm going to learn from that and then I'm going to try again. So I feel like I've been in all these camps, so I'll just talk about this real quick. So I'm incapacitated, I'm inconsolable, like, you know, take me back to late teens, early 20s, didn't get into the colleges that I wanted to go to, didn't get into the graduate schools I wanted to go to, like almost near, like, you know, when I saw all my friends getting acceptance letters, you know, and I was getting rejection letters, inconsolable. Like that was the existential failure. I was like, there is nothing outside of getting into college, right? Oh my God, like, pfft. But that was my narrow worldview. I got over that. I survived. I went to school. Then I applied to graduate school, got universally rejected from every graduate school I applied to. So then I was like, okay, I'm going to be a stubborn motherfucker now, and I'm going to apply to grad school again. So instead of actually having that turn me away, so I was neither inconsolable, and then I didn't do an about face, I just turned stubborn and was like, okay, well now I'm going to prove it to you. So this was like another version of like how I'm dealing with failure. So the second round, I took another year, reapplied to graduate schools, got in, but then was doing the thing for the wrong reasons. Because at this point, I'm in graduate school just to prove to God knows who that I was smart enough to be there. And then finally, I got some sense into me and was like, I don't want to be here anymore. This is pointless. I got in, so what? So I've proved to myself I'm not a dummy, which is, you know, that was where I was at that time. And then catapult later into, you know, failings with my business or whatever, or applying for things and not getting them. And another version of just being like, okay, now I'm reading into the universe that this may be a signal where that's actually not what I'm supposed to be doing. So I'm no longer inconsolable. I'm no longer going to say like, okay, I'm going to be the bull and just run into the brick wall again. Now I'm like, okay, now what lesson, what information can I glean from this failure? And maybe it's actually because I'm not supposed to be there right now, so I'm gonna redirect my energies into something else. So that's just 3 examples of like 3 different ways to sort of deal with failure. I've done it all, man. I failed in so many ways, and I've dealt with it in so many different ways.
Well, I feel like I hit that third phase early on. You know, it was like I said, like when I realized that I couldn't get good grades, quote unquote couldn't. I probably could have if I really thought that I could have and just studied hard or whatever the fuck you were supposed to do in high school. I just took it as like, no, I'm not supposed to be doing that. Like my reason for being here is something else, you know, and I think by the time I was 19 years old and the people who I knew that went to school were in school, and the people who I was hanging out with who never did go to school were where they were, and I was like on the other side of the country just gallivanting and ending up in Hawaii and going on adventures, and my whole life was about this adventurous lifestyle, which eventually brought me to Vermont. It was because of that, like, that's not the way I'm supposed to be going, you know. I'm like, for instance, here's a good story. I tried to relocate to Costa Rica when I was 23, and I failed at doing that, right? And the reason why I failed at doing that, like, I got to Miami International Airport, and I was going to take a flight to Panama, and then from Panama I was going to go to Costa Rica. And I had a one-way ticket because I knew I wasn't going to come back. Yeah. But I didn't have any sort of, like, actual immigration plan to emigrate to Costa Rica, but you know, there's some ways that you can finagle that, and so that was my plan. And I knew that was my plan. So when I got to the gate at the Panama airline or whatever, I'm supposed to fly to Panama, and they're looking at my ticket and they're like, so you don't have a return flight? And I was like, no. They must have knew that was my plan too, because they were like, well, you can't come in without a return flight, you know? And I was like, oh, you got me. You know? Now, in hindsight, like as an adult now, I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, yeah, I can. I'm not going to come back through Panama. I don't know when I'm going to come back. I'm going to go through Central America. I'm trying to get to Argentina. I'm going to fly out, you know, whatever. Right. I don't have to come back. I don't have to prove to this woman that I have to come back through here. But in my failure to recognize the situation for what it really was in that moment, I ended up coming back to Vermont, and that's what kind of set me on the trajectory where I am right now. So, you know, obviously I wasn't meant to go to Costa Rica sort of idea, and that moment of inattention to what was actually going on, where somebody was just trying to get me to buy a ticket, instead of me realizing like, oh no, I basically thought like, oh, you got me, like the jig is up, you know what I mean? You got me and I can't go. Instead of really taking the moment to say like, actually, no, I can use my smarts and get into the country that I'm trying to go to. So again, it's like, there's so many failures in that moment. It's not just like my failure to get there. I failed at getting there because I failed to recognize the situation that I was in, because I failed to really know what it was that I was even doing in the first place, right? This sort of like failure to prepare, you know, the failure to plan is a plan to fail or whatever. So yeah, wow, this is, I'm having an introspective moment here for this episode, Sarah. Thank you for bringing this up. Oh, you're welcome.
I'm really fascinated by the topic, and just societally also, like what even it, like in terms of how let's even just take the United States, like, and how we see ourselves or what we project, that it's, I think part of me just got so tired of hearing this dialogue about like, we win at everything and we're a country of winners. And I'm like, that's just stupid, man. Like, I don't know. It just felt like, I guess I just don't like being fed bullshit. I do really like to speak in real terms and speak authentically, and I'm just, when I think about it, it's like I don't know anybody who's not failing, and especially right now in this time of this, nearing 9 months into navigating this pandemic, where people are so worried about failing as parents or failing at a job or failing, like if your small business is on the verge of closing. You know, I listen to NPR frequently, National Public Radio, and on the weekends they usually, they pick up stories nationally. So I was listening to a program over Thanksgiving weekend, and it was a tearful interview with a small business owner, and I can't remember where they were based out of, but this man was closing his brewery or something, or a pub, or I don't know, something like that. And he was brought to tears, and he was like, I'm a failure. I've failed. And I was just like, man, like, and my heart went out to him because it was sort of in this classic sense. Like, he was just like, I failed myself. I failed my employees. I'm like, the weight of that, it's almost like to say this, like for you to just shout, like, I'm a failure. It's like almost like it's releasing this external weight that's been placed on all of us, like that we're not allowed to, have things not work out. Right. This man I don't know who this guy is, but it's like, dude, it's a pandemic. I mean, you didn't, what a burden, like a load to carry. It's like, it's almost like I kind of wanted to like shake him and be like, no, man, like, so there's kind of just a lot of that energy where, I think already in a society where we're also made to feel like we're not enough. And I know we talk a lot about self-worth on this podcast. And so it's almost like, I know it's trendy to say normalize, fill in the blank, but like normalizing this idea that we are all failures, and because we're all works in progress, and because we're not perfect, like, of course. So that's like, that to me, like, that's really powerful to acknowledge it. And it's almost like, okay, I can look in the mirror and be like, all right, like, I don't have to be this perfect, super successful, doesn't make any mistakes kind of person anymore. Right. And that's liberating.
Wow, yeah.
And it doesn't mean that you're not striving for excellence.
Right.
You can be excellent because you are. And a failure too. And I know that's like, wait, what? Like, I know. Yeah. And it's like, yeah. And I get it too. And like, I know, like, Mujib and I love to talk about, what hip hop means to us and the reason why we listen to it. And I definitely, I get so hyped when it's like, yeah, failure's not an option. You can kind of really get into that, like, yeah. But, like, it is. Right. That's one of a million songs. The bunch that did not get put on the album. I know, right? Like, we're not. We're not going to put that one on.
Right. Oh, my. That's so real. And we are in this time period where it's like, for instance, I send a lot of pictures of my son to my family, and they're like, he doesn't take a bad picture. And I'm like, I got a lot of bad pictures of this kid, but I don't send the bad pictures. Right. I only send the good pictures, Like, why would I send the picture where he's got one eye closed and his mouth is wide open, you know what I mean? Because that's not, somebody would be like, why do you keep sending me these ugly pictures of this beautiful baby? That sort of idea. So I'm grappling with it. And I think that it goes back to the fear to fail. Because if I look at myself as like a failure as a parent, or if my business fails, then there's a lot of fear that's attached to that. Like, what am I going to do if my business fails? How am I going to feed myself? How am I going to provide my portion for my family that I'm responsible for providing? And so everything is like, then we've got to succeed, And you just said it perfectly, like, so I strive for excellence, but in my pursuit of excellence, I am going to hit roots of failure in order to get there. But it's almost like, again, back to what I said early on, is like, it's almost like just got to take them and keep on moving, to the extent that I can't even really acknowledge them as failures, so I don't take the time to actually process them as failures. So here I am on this podcast really having these like heart-opening moments, because I'm like, damn, like, you're right. In my quest for success as a parent, as a person, I am willing to make mistakes. You know, I am willing to have shit not go the exact way that I want it to go because I have a vision for something. I have to be able to admit to myself that I am willing to fail in my pursuit of my own excellence.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And even if it's not in pursuit of my own excellence, I am willing to fail for the sake of failure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Shit.
Right?
Right.
Well, and I think even, okay, so, you know, we're trainers. Obviously, you guys know this by now, you know, in our field. And I do even think about it in terms of, you know, training the body, you know, like, again, like thinking about those mechanisms, you know, or you teach a new skill, you know, again, like, you know, I work with Mujib on Fridays, you know, I feel like you've even coached me this way, like, you know, coaching someone like how to fail the right way when it comes to, like, if I have a kettlebell in my hand. You've literally coached me in this, right?
Right.
So, dude, apply this in other aspects of your life. You know, it's like, so Mujib's teaching me the kettlebell snatch, but we've got to lay a foundation so that if shit goes wrong, like, that failure doesn't equal like a trip to the emergency room necessarily, but I might still fail like at the move, but like I can, like, you know, learning how to fail. So, like, you know, I think of like elements of that too.
Well, yeah.
You know, like learning how to fail, or like I'm even flashing back to, like, so Mujib had this, he rolls out this agility ladder and I'm like so excited. And you were watching me do this. So he gives me this move and I'm fucking failing left and right in the beginning. Like, it's like, which foot is in, which foot is out? And you can literally see the gears turning on my brain as I'm trying to figure this out. But damn shit, like, by the end, like, right, by the last one, I was like, I've got this thing and I'm going to get faster. But, like, not without, how many times was I trying to restart? Right. Of course. So if we, you know, we think about it in other, it's almost like we can compartmentalize failure. Like, okay, all right, okay, yeah, when I'm learning a new skill, like, you know, sure, like, there's going to be times where I'm failing. But I think it's, you know, we just have to extrapolate that into the broader sense.
Or, like, it makes me think of there are degrees of failure that I'm willing to accept.
Yeah.
Like, I'm willing to accept failure that still brings success, or I'm willing to accept failure that doesn't result in catastrophic disruption of what it is that I'm trying to do, or death, you know?
Yeah.
But I'm not willing to accept failure that means that everything is washed now, you know?
Yeah.
But the enlightenment, I guess, comes with, like, actually, no, yes, I am. I am willing to have a catastrophic failure that makes everything seem like it's fucked.
Yeah.
Right? That washes everything out from underneath me. Because I have to have the faith that if I'm still here and everything is washed out from underneath me, then something that's going to grow out of that is actually what it is that I'm supposed to be doing. There's a benefit that I'm going to take out of that, or some success that I'm going to take out of it, because I'm still willing to go on.
Right. Okay. So I'm going to take you back to a conversation we had a long time ago, and we were talking about, either we were talking about Dominica or we were talking about the Caribbean, and we were talking about places literally when homes getting destroyed, right? Think about island life, right? You're still you're gonna rebuild the house.
And like you said, it's gonna be stronger.
Yeah.
You're gonna build it so that it's stronger, so it can withstand the hurricane or the earthquake or whatever.
But to live in an area of the world where you are susceptible to volcanoes, hurricanes, like these existential things, like, shit's gonna get wiped out, but you're gonna rebuild. What, you're not going to rebuild your house? Well, then what? You know what I mean? So I think it's, you know, I just remember talking about that and being like, oh, yeah, you know.
Yeah.
You know, so sometimes it's just thinking about it in just a little different way. You know, it's like if, you know, whatever, you know, my business is at an interesting crossroads right now. Never would I say everything's been worth it. All the ups, downs, highs, lows, gains, losses, everything. And there's been big losses, like, in the last 8 years, for sure. I wouldn't change a thing.
Right.
Yeah, I wouldn't. I literally wouldn't. And I've talked about some of those things, from, you know, wacky business deals, like just, all these things, losing out on getting kicked out of places, like all this other stuff, like whether it's been external, internal, things that I couldn't control, things that I could control. I don't know. I just wouldn't,
Yeah.
Whatever. It's just
Such an interest. I'm so quick to want to say the same thing. In terms of business, for sure. That's so easy to be like, yeah, fuck yeah, for business. Like, I wouldn't change anything. I wouldn't change any of the bumps and the ups and the downs. What I was talking to you about before we got started was the idea that, like, so there's this concept that everything needs an equal exchange, So like if you're going to have success, then you're going to have to sacrifice something for that success. And in my 20s, I spent a lot of time really focused on self. So a lot of my philosophy that comes with this podcast, and my part in this podcast, comes from that journey that I went through as a 20-year-old and in my 20s and into my early 30s and getting to this place. And I sacrificed a lot. Mm-hmm. And I think I told you just a little while ago, like I sacrificed time with my family, and I think that there is the biggest struggle. Like, if I could go back and spend more time with my grandmother, I would. If I could go back and spend more time with my father, if I could change that, I would. I wouldn't. The things that I sacrificed for that, they weren't worth it to me. Like, would I give my son up? Would I give my lifestyle up as it is, like my family and the growth and the person that I've become? No, obviously not, because I wouldn't be this person without those experiences. But I think that's the hardest part about being human for me right now that I'm learning to deal with, is to realize, like, in my life, in my flesh and blood life, there are certain things that I would go back and change. Would I butterfly affect my life as it is right now and go and change those things and have none of this stuff have happened? No, I wouldn't, because where I am right now, like, I wouldn't sacrifice these things for those things. But it's even hard to say that because I want those things so bad,
Yeah.
And that's my own personal journey, and I think that's where I have not a hard time, but I think that's why it's not so automatic for me to be like, yeah, it's fine. It's all on the way to it, because stuff is pretty fresh for me still,
Yeah.
like I lost valuable time with valuable people that I'll never be able to get back in this lifetime. Like, I won't see those people again in this lifetime. And it was not, I can openly say that I do regret it, and I can openly say that without saying that, like, it doesn't make me sad about where I am right now. And I think that's the duality of being a human being.
Totally.
Is, like you said, to be excellent and a failure at the same time, to be pleased and have regrets. Just like we say, like, you're never supposed to have failures, or no, there's no failure. We also say we're never supposed to have regrets, but there are. It is the balance. It is the dichotomy. I can be thrilled about my life and not want to change anything about it, except to have my grandmother back and my father and my you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, that's where my mind goes with that.
That's just such a human statement, and I think that's exactly what it is to be human. Like, and I'm not one to identify with the term, like, yeah, no regrets. Well, of course. Of course. I mean, are you an automaton? Like, to not, to not have, and I think it's in particular regret coming in the sort of the human realm in terms of human relationships. Like, I can't think of many regrets in terms of, like, winning this or that or sort of like stuff, but definitely, I would say too, family stuff, making those choices, like, that's very human, to feel that. And I think, you know, we're both empaths and like compassionate people. So like, I think that's like very raw to be like, yeah, of course, you know, and there will always be that. I think I do find it interesting when people are like, oh yeah, you know, I live my life without regret, or I don't, you know, or someone gets to the end of their life and I have no regrets about how I lived my life. I'm like, really?
Right, there's not one person you could have called that you would call if you could have called them again. You know?
Yeah.
Like,
and I think we do find, and because, you know, ultimately, you know, life is short. I mean, there's just so many things like all the time, you know, when we think about life moving as fast as it moves. And sometimes, you know, like I'm going to call my brother after this because I feel like my brother called me on Thanksgiving and I didn't call him back, you know, like I might live to regret that, you know? So, you know.
That makes me think though too, like how those failures can spark this going forward, or this like fortifying of oneself. Like my failure to be the person or play the role that I could have played for my family in my 20s breeds a necessity in me to play that role going into my 40s. You know what I mean? Like it's my relationship with my own father that forms my relationship with my children. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so there is a lot of that playing back on what you were saying earlier about like, what is the failure going to breed? You know, does failure breed just the turning around and saying like, well then fuck it, my hands are up, there's nothing I can do about it, I'm inconsolable, you can't tell me anything, this is bad. Or does it make me be bullheaded and be like, well, fuck it, I'm just going to do the same thing again and get into it, you know? Yeah. Or does it make me step back and reapproach what I'm going to do next with my life? Does that failure make me say, okay, well, like, I'm going to take that scar, I'm going to look at that scar, and I'm going to remember how I got that scar, and that is going to let me get myself through this next bit. Because that's the thing about failure. It's constant. You know, that's what this conversation has really been chiming on me. It's like, it's constant. Like I can't be afraid of failing. I can't be afraid of the regrets. I can't lock myself in a room and be afraid of not making the right choices and regretting later down the line that I didn't make the right choice. Yeah. Because life is going to be full of regrets. It's fucking Jay-Z said it in like Reasonable Doubt. Like, you have to learn to live with regrets. Like, it just is that way. And regrets or failures are the way that we get to successes and the beautiful relationships that we have. And it's not even necessarily like success is the goal. Right? Yeah. Because, you know, it's easy again for business. It's like success or failure. Like, did it work or did it not? Right. You know, what's my bottom line say? Did I get there or did I not get there? Right. If in a race, did I win the race or not win the race? But it's in life, it's so dynamic, it's so layered. There are so many different facets of it that it's not like, am I a shitty business person, a shitty partner, a shitty friend, a shitty self-care person, my pets hate me, I burned my house down, you know what I mean? And then I just like buried myself up to my neck and was like, fuck the rest of it. You know what I mean? If that's not the case, then we can be all right, I guess, you know?
You know, I feel like I have to make the sports analogy here. Y'all have been waiting for it. It's the whole, like, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. Right? Well, of course, you know, so I'm one of those believers of, you know, putting yourself out there. Like, if we remove the fear factor, you know, if we make it less scary, like, if you can already come out and say, I'm a failure already, so what have I got to lose? You know, and it sounds silly, and I'm laughing, and I'm making light of it, but if we can sort of truly, it's kind of, it's in keeping with this whole, like, know thyself and self-love and this confidence thing, because I know it probably feels a little like, this isn't making sense. Like, how can you be so confident and call yourself a failure, right? Because we're told that these are like diametrically opposed things. But, you know, I have the confidence to tell you right here, right now, like, I'm a failure. And that doesn't scare me, and I'm not afraid of it. And that's something I embrace about the journey. And it's like, I am going to try for that next thing. And I know we keep talking about leveling up. Like, I'm going to keep leveling up. It's like, you know, I used to play Mario Brothers. Like, the amount of times I wanted to, like, you know, get to the finals and, like, beat the big dragon. Blanking on what it is, but, you know.
You had to fall in the hole a bunch of
Oh, my
times.
God. I mean, the amount of times, is just how many lives. I play that game for hours. But, yeah.
Holy shit. Wow. Yeah, and it makes me think, like, in order for me to get to that next place, in order for us to all get to where we're going, the failure has to be embraced. Like, I have to know between now and 55 or 65 or 75 or 85 or wherever I'm going to get to my ultimate levels of success, it's paved with failures on the way there. You know, it's gotta be. Like, I can't achieve this highest level of self. I can't know myself without making mistakes about who I am from time to time.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I can't find the edges unless I hit them.
Right.
You know? I can't get to success without failure. It's true. And again, without even attaching success to it, I can't get through this life without failure.
Yeah.
I will fail. Damn.
Do you feel better?
I'm so sad.
Oh my God.
But it's like, I just feel so sentimental, I guess.
Yeah.
It's not that I'm sad about it.
Yeah.
But I am sentimental about it because it is, you know, and that's why I love this podcast. And I thank you so much for the opportunity to sit here and have these conversations about it, because it's like, this is a real conversation that y'all are listening to out there. Like, this is a conversation between one person who has made their peace with failing and one person who is trying to figure out, like, damn, well, I thought I did make my peace with failing. I talk all the time about this stuff, but at the same time, like, there's still more peace to be made because there's more failures to have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's all good. To all my failures out there. I'm rooting for you. Yeah. I'm rooting for you.
Yeah, and rooting for you to fail.
Yeah.
At the same time, which is, like, what a crazy thing to say.
Right? Because, and it's kind of a final thought, like, you know, we're sort of taught, like, oh, that your haters want you to fail. Your haters don't want you to succeed. Like, you know, it's just kind of funny, like, how we're, you know, just the way that we're taught to even think about, you know, what is failure? Like, what is this thing, you know, that's so scary? Or, like, you know, no, actually, like, you know, it's just part of the process. It's just it's the thing. It's the yin, the yang. Like, there's,
Right.
it's part of it.
It is the process.
Like, I don't, you know, I mean, I'm watching videos of your beautiful son take a couple steps and trip and fall on his face in the leaves.
Right.
He has to.
Yeah. And
unless he's Jesus and he's walking on water. Maybe he's baby Jesus. I don't know.
Because that's the whole thing. It's like, and it's so wild. I love that you put it that way, because it's so obvious. Like, I don't want him to fall on his face because I don't want him to get hurt, but I need him to fall on his face so that I can know what it's like to do that, so that he can
And get up.
learn how to get up, so that he can learn how to take the steps, so that he can learn where the danger is to avoid, so on and so forth.
Yeah.
Wow, this has been a real session for me
I'm
right
so
now.
glad. I'm
Wow.
so glad.
Holy shit.
Oh man, so we're gonna do some deep breathing. We're gonna take a time out. No, but you guys, I hope this has been eye-opening for everybody. And I mean, I truly mean this. We want to hear from you guys. We want you to engage with us on these topics. And, you know, tell me I'm full of shit. That's fine. I can handle it. But if I don't know, maybe you have some takeaways from today, and I would love to hear from you guys and on your thoughts. And yeah, and I always appreciate talking to Mujib
Oh
and
my
just
God, I
kind of
appreciate it so much.
uncovering whatever it is we uncover. Because you guys, this is happening in real time. This is one take. This is not edited. You literally just get this like raw, basically raw and uncut. So thank you guys for listening. We invite you into this, in the journey that we too are we're right here with you.
Yeah, go back to the earlier part of this episode. Try to see if you can hear my chair squeaking as I was squirming around in it.
Probably can. Oh man, we want to thank you guys so much. This has been another episode of Let's Get to It. My name is Sarah.
My name is Mujib.
Take care.